So, what if the very thing that fuels progress is also, well, an engine of destruction? It sounds kind of dramatic, right? But today we're diving into a Nobel Prize-winning idea that's doing exactly that. It's reshaping our world, often in ways we don't even see happening. It's called creative destruction, and yeah, it promises this amazing, brighter future. But the big question we have to ask is, a brighter future for who, exactly?
And look, it all kicks off with a massive stamp of approval. We're talking about a Nobel Prize here. You know, the ultimate gold star for an idea. It's being handed out for a theory of economic growth. And the message that sends to the entire world? It's crystal clear. Hey everyone, this is the official blueprint for prosperity. This is the way forward for a better future.
But here's the thing. If you actually look past those shiny headlines, you start to see a real tension. Once we start peeling back the layers of this super celebrated theory, we've got to ask, who really benefits from this whole vision of the future? And in this mad dash for progress, what or who is getting left in the dust?
All right, so to really get to the bottom of that, let's first take a step back. We need to look at the prize itself and the incredibly powerful idea it's pushing.
So a little bit of trivia for you. The Economics Prize isn't actually one of the original Nobels. It was created by Sweden's central bank way back in the 70s. Anyway, fast forward to today, and this prize gets awarded for a theory called creative destruction. And let's be real, this is way more than just a high five for a few academics. It's a massive signal to the entire world, basically telling everyone which economic ideas are the ones that really matter right now. Okay, so what makes this theory so darn influential? Well, to really get its impact on our lives, we have to ask an even bigger question. In our economy today, what's really driving innovation? Are we trying to solve big human problems, or is it something else entirely? And this is where you see a huge shift. I mean, we used to live in a time where innovation was all about responding to big human needs, things like clean water, public health, that sort of stuff. But now it's pretty much all dictated by capital. The big question has changed. It's not what does society need anymore. Now it's what's going to make the most money for investors.
So how does that actually play out in the real world? Well, just think about our universities, right? Our big research centers. They depend heavily on funding from major corporations. And naturally, that money is going to go towards research that has commercial potential. Stuff that can boost sales or create new markets. But what about the research that's just for social good, for the community? Yeah, those projects really struggle to get a dime. So what's happening is that our universities, our places of learning, are basically turning into cogs in the big economic machine.
And as you can probably guess, when innovation is all about profit, you're going to run into a major conflict. It's a huge clash between that constant push for progress and the absolute need for protection. The conflict itself is actually pretty simple, but its effects are huge. On one side, you've got investors and innovators who are just rushing to get new stuff out the door and make their money back. But on the other side, you've got governments, and their job is to put up guardrails, regulations to protect our safety, our rights, the environment. But if you're only looking at the bottom line, those protections don't look like safeguards. They just look like annoying roadblocks slowing everything down. I mean, look no further than the COVID-19 pandemic for a perfect, real-world example of this. To get those vaccines out the door, the whole safety and evaluation process, which usually takes years, was squeezed into just a few months, a totally record-breaking timeline. And now, that fast-track model is being praised as the new ideal for every industry. The message is, get to market fast, no matter what. We'll figure out the consequences later.
Okay, so now that we've got all that context, this focus on profit, this push against regulation, we can finally get to the heart of it. Let's actually define this award-winning theory. What is creative destruction? Basically, at its core, it's the idea that for progress to happen, you have to do some demolition first. It's like you can't build a new skyscraper without tearing down the old building that was there before. And we're not just talking about a new phone replacing an old one. This is about actively dismantling entire industries, getting rid of regulations, and even changing whole ways of life, all for the sake of economic growth. In this worldview, the destruction part is just as important as the creation part.
So in practice, how does this work? Well, it kind of unfolds in 3 steps. Step 1, you bring in a new technology to replace an old one. Simple enough. But step 2 is the real kicker. You have to actively get rid of the rules and regulations that were protecting the old industries and the people who worked in them. And then finally, step 3, you just have to accept that those old sectors are going to collapse, and you're basically betting the farm on the promise that whatever the new thing brings will be worth all the damage it causes right now.
And this right here, This is where the theory gets its biggest pushback. Because what it's really asking is for all of us, as a society, to take a massive gamble on a future that we honestly know very little about.
And here's the absolute core of the issue. We are tearing down systems that we know, that are stable and understood, and we're replacing them with technologies that are, for all intents and purposes, still experimental. We just don't have the data on what they'll do in the long run, to our society, to the environment, to our ethics. We're being told to take a huge collective leap of faith, completely into the dark.
If you want a perfect example of what unclear long-term impacts looks like, just think about one word: plastics.
I mean, really think about it. The plastics industry is totally mature now. It's established. But decades after we started using it everywhere, we are still finding out about all the horrible effects it's having on our bodies and our planet. These were consequences nobody even dreamed of back when it was being called a miracle material. And that's so different from older industries, like, say, cement, where we've known the risks and the benefits for a really, really long time.
So, when you put all these pieces together, it leads us to one final massive question that this whole theory just forces us to face.
When you strip away all the fancy academic jargon, it really just boils down to this. Is creative destruction really a road to a better future for everybody? Or is it just a convenient story we tell ourselves to justify a cycle of disruption that chews up communities and jobs, all for the benefit of the people who own the capital and the new tech? The Nobel Prize might have been handed out, but for the rest of us, well, that question is still very much up in the air.